Hello, all you adventurous souls out there. This is TJ Murphy, and welcome to another episode of Adventurous Entrepreneurs. Today's guest is Ryan Miles. Ryan is the owner of Peak Euro, a full automotive service shop here in beautiful Bend, Oregon, focused on virtually all models of European cars, which he started in 2007. He grew up around all kinds of machinery on a family ranch where he learned that keeping your machine running smoothly is a requirement for protecting your livelihood. Ryan and his wife moved to Bend long before me back in 2005. And like many of us, they moved here for the outdoor lifestyle as they enjoy skiing and mountain biking, among other adventurous interests. I invited Ryan to join me on the show because of his tremendous ability to use a growth mindset to not only grow a successful business, but create what he describes as a work-life blend, which you will learn is different from work-life balance, allowing him to enjoy a well-rounded life full of his passions and time spent with family. Just a few of the golden takeaways Ryan shares in this episode are the value of building a quality team, breaking away from the pitfalls of having a small mindset, and avoiding single point of failure situations. So without further ado, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Ryan Miles. Welcome to the Adventurous Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, TJ Murphy. Since quitting my corporate 9-to-5 and starting a business while backpacking through Asia back in early 2017, I've had the privilege of learning from some incredibly adventurous entrepreneurs. Through these conversations and my own journey, I've learned that much like in life, entrepreneurship is an adventure. On this podcast, I explore the journeys of top-performing leaders in their fields. These wide-ranging conversations include tactical business advice, how I built this insights, lessons in leadership, life hacks, travel stories, favorite hobbies, and insights into living a purposeful and joy-filled life. Adventures await us, so let's dive in. Hey, Ryan. Welcome to Adventurous Entrepreneurs.
Yeah, hey, thank you for having me on. I'm pretty stoked to be here.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome to have you here. So, for starters, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do and who do you help?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the owner of an auto repair business, a European auto shop here in Bend, Oregon, um, named Peak Euro. And so, the main thing we do is help the public, obviously, people who own European cars. Yeah, we have a staff of about 10. So that's the main occupier of my time other than being a dad. Yeah. Been in Bend since 2005, so a little bit like a semi-local almost.
Pretty much, man. A Bendian. So,
Maybe.
tell me a little bit about where things are at for you guys today. What has your focus right now primarily within the business?
Yeah, so we're in a bit of a transitional period now where we've gotten to a scale where we have a full-time manager. So my focus today is in training, kind of transferring off responsibilities, actually.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've scaled a company to run independently in that way and have its own management team. So, the main part of my focus is growing my main general manager, and then we have another production manager as well. So that's in business spends the most of my time spend my most of my time doing that. And then we're looking for growth opportunities as well, so scaling into other locations. Yeah.
How has that felt kind of getting out of the day to day and really just focusing on recruiting high quality talent?
uh it's a transition. Probably anybody who's been through that transition, starting out as an entrepreneur, I think it's probably, we all have these goals, this this spot, this vision, right? And I think for most of it, that's a part of it, right? Especially when you're young, you're like, oh man, it's just going to be so cool when this thing runs itself, and really have no idea what it's going to take to get there. um it's been a journey. So now that it's finally happening, it is a bit surreal. It's a bit strange. It's a liminal space. It's a new spot. So new level, new devil, as they say. There's always new challenges, and one of those is kind of, what do I do with my time, which is a really great question to have for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, having spent more years than I'd like to admit doing everything and wearing every hat in my business, which I've been fortunate to find great mentors and a team to be able to help me get away from that. I mean, I know the feeling of stepping out, and it does bring up a big question of what next? How can I continue to grow this thing and thrive and use my time the most effectively? And so I'm curious, I know you grew up on a family farm, correct?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I grew up on a dairy.
Did you or do you find that there's any lessons that you learned growing up in the family business that have helped you in your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, a ton, but I think as we're speaking about, that can also be some of the hindrance because you fall into the jack trap in a way. And that simply means you're the jack of all trades, right? It's the trap that I can do that. And to some extent, when you're an entrepreneur, I think you have a feeling that nobody can do it better, which I think is probably the biggest lesson I've ever learned. Is that done is better than perfect every day. And so, of course, growing up in that environment, we learned how to do everything. We're very self sufficient. My parents were entrepreneurs, started this business, very, homegrown grassroots business, started in the 50s. And so we learned that everything was possible and there were no limits in that way, and how to be very like self-reliant. But through the years it served me really well. I would never go back, would never change anything in my life, but it every valuable thing we have in our life has um, its own Achilles heel, right? So it's really great to know how to do everything, but it's even better to find people that are better at it than you, and give them the opportunity. So it helped, no doubt about it. It helps every day.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. It rings very true when you said getting something done is far better than struggling to get it done perfectly yourself. And finding a team that you can rely on, even if you know you could have done it slightly better, it's impossible, right? At the end of the day, to do everything perfectly yourself and continue to scale and grow and have a life outside of work.
Yeah, doing everything perfect is great for you. And if you want to remain a sole proprietor your whole business life, that's fine. And if that's the plan, that's really wonderful. And I think there's are really highly skilled trades and craftsmen, um, fields of work where that's a wonderful way to exist. There's nothing wrong with it. um, if it just depends on the plan. If the plan is to scale a business to where it's self-sufficient, it has some security, it provides opportunity for other people, it serves more people in the public, then you really don't have a choice to stay small. I've done it both ways. We didn't grow for a long time, and until just the last couple of years really. And so I have a bit of experience of being small, was small for a very long time. And of course, we're still a small business. Um, but
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
Yeah, it's important to know what you want out of your business, because there's nothing wrong with being, the practitioner and doing things yourself. There's great money to be made there, but if your desire is to grow beyond that, then you have to get out of the day to day as quickly as possible.
yeah,
And part of our focus with this podcast is looking at entrepreneurship through the lens of it being an adventure, which it very much is. It's a journey. And in every great adventure story, there is typically a guide or some mentor who leads the hero down the path toward reaching their goal. Do you have any mentors or influential people in your life that come to mind that really helped shape you into the adventurous entrepreneur that you are?
yeah. That's a great question. Early on, So I actually started this business in 2007, doing auto sales. One of my first mentors was a guy who ran a warehouse auto sales business in Portland, actually, who we ended up teaming up in kind of an unofficial partnership. He was my car buyer, and then we ran a retail center over here in Bend. So he was definitely the first guy that made it seem real to me that you could have this sweet setup. Just being in his business and watching him work, I thought, man, there's something to this deal. I gotta learn how to do this. And he was really cool, and luckily took me under his wing and basically said he was going on vacation for 3 weeks, and if I had my dealer's license when he came back, then he would consider working with us. And so we
Nice
actually started
opportunity.
in that way. Yeah, almost like a dare, fun to think back on it. So he came back. I had rented a, man, probably 1,100 square foot, little shady warehouse. Had the location, had all the permits, everything rolling. Had my license, business set up, and we started rolling. Um, and then that was in '07. So then, if anybody was around during the first recession that most of us went through in our professional lives, things changed right away. So he was the first one. Um, and then today, as I was thinking over this, many mentors today really in the industry that have had a huge impact on like practical side of like business management and things like that. But I think personal development and personal growth mentors have been the most influential over my business growth, ironically. Um, I think that's the secret for a lot of us is getting out of our own way. So um, maybe not, but I can only speak to my experience. It was for
I know
me.
it's true for me,
I
definitely.
don't know.
Gotta get out of my
There's
own way.
there's two, so maybe more. Who knows?
Yeah. But
Um,
amazing that you had
yeah,
somebody, that first mentor that, kind of gave you that challenge. Like, hey, if you
yeah,
keep your shit together, this is the opportunity that you can take on.
yeah. Yeah, we had an amazing unofficial. We weren't partners. He would basically, I would buy inventory from him, cars. I would post date a check, 60 days, and I had 60 days, and he would just cash the check. He wouldn't even call me. He would just deposit it. He's like, "This, let me know if you sell the car, and I'll slam the check, and if not, it goes through in 60 days anyway." It was a really great motivator.
Yeah,
We just, never let them bounce. So we didn't, and it worked.
I love that.
Yeah.
How has going down the wrong path in your business at one time or another, or some apparent failure in life, set you up to climb to even greater heights than you thought you could originally?
Yeah. Well, uh, I think it's Honda that says win or learn. And it all depends on perspective. And of course, many times we gain that perspective after we come out of a learning experience, right? Even thinking back on mistakes that I've made. Um, I have made so many mistakes in leadership, um, in communication as well. Being clear with people, being clear with my staff, and being so afraid to hire talent. If I were to think of the biggest mistake that I've made, it's that I was too afraid that our business wasn't legitimate enough to afford high quality talent. Um, and obviously, how that's turned into the greatest gift so far is as soon as that lesson was learned. I say learned, we learn it every day.
Always learning.
uh, as that became more apparent, it became the catalyst. And that, I think, is the beauty of entrepreneurship is you're taking this risk out on your own, but really the only way that it works is through a team by and large. So That's the biggest mistake that I've made is not being clear, not believing in high quality talent, not believing that we had something to offer people in that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
painful lesson. Took
It
about a
is, but
decade.
I think it's something that every entrepreneur goes through at one time or another. That imposter syndrome, like even when you're having success and seeing growth, like I'm sure you were at that time, still not feeling like you're at that caliber to be able to recruit and pull in high quality talent. Which, of course, looking back today, I'm sure you were perfectly capable of,
Uh,
and would have been able to
Yeah.
be a great leader.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it took some growth, no doubt about it. There's an investment in your own growth. For me, there was. It took some time, and the mistake that I had there is thinking that in our industry, especially small, was safe, and small was actually so very precarious. Because you're wearing all these hats, and maybe you have one other team member that's wearing all the other hats. And man, one person's gone and you're down 50% of your staff. Well, if you think of like a larger, I mean, even 100-person, company, they miss one person. Goodness, it's 1%, right? It's no big deal. I mean, there's somebody gone all the time. So that was a huge roadblock, massive. And anybody who is, building their own business probably starts with one. And so I I had that roadblock.
Yeah. No, I mean, we all, for the most part, start with one, but especially as the beast grows, having a single point of failure or just 2 points of failure, that can create some major problems when life happens, right? Because inevitably it does. And you've been able to grow an incredible team around you over the years. So what have you learned along the way that has helped you get out of that imposter syndrome and then ultimately be able to hire quality people and retain them long term?
Yeah. So some of it is time, right? So most of our belief systems and our thoughts and our habits are built on self-talk, what we tell ourselves every day, right? Where we look is where we're going. So time can help in that way. Like the longer you spend in something, you adjust to it and it becomes the new norm. And then you take a step forward and it becomes the new norm. That was one way. Um, I wish I could say that would be the best way to do it or the only way to do it. For me, it actually came from great pain, that lesson. Um, we were still small. This was not long ago at all, like 2020, beginning of 2020, like 2.5 years ago. We were still very small, two people on staff, myself. We worked with automotive technicians, obviously, myself and a master technician. And some things changed, and this person was going to be moving on, actually leaving the industry. And that obviously created a great dilemma in our business because this person was so important. And the beauty of that is, they say the pain pushes until the vision pulls. And it just pushed us right up to the cliff where I had to decide which way we were going to go. And there are obviously a lot of other factors in 2020, if anybody remembers what was going on.
Yeah.
So that was 2020 was the year where we really had to decide what was going to happen. How how were we going to approach the industry? How were we going to show up? And the decision was made, especially after losing a key person, that the only way to survive was to build a bigger ship that could take on bigger waves. And uh, I just dove into learning about it, what it meant to provide legitimate jobs, legitimate incomes, better than industry benefits, just how to be the best in our industry and start to change it. Um, People probably don't know a lot about auto repair because it's not super sexy, although we all have cars and depend on auto repair professionals. And our industry has rightfully earned not the best reputation. So, we have a great opportunity in this industry to change how it's done. And
Yeah.
we just decided to go all in that regard. Yeah. Many steps, but pain is what led to it. Just
Sometimes it
deciding.
takes pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when the ship sinks, you got to build a better ship. And you've been
Yeah.
able to do that. And Ryan, you and I have talked a little bit about mindset before, especially having a small mindset, how that can really impact personal growth, which of course translates to business growth as well. Do you have any frameworks or practices that have really helped you get through that when you're feeling overwhelmed or you found yourself in that small mindset in the past?
Yeah. So probably the most valuable thing for me, I get overwhelmed almost every day. I think probably if we're honest with ourselves, if you're pushing, you're gonna get overwhelmed. Uh, you know, if it's easy, I don't want to do it. So it's overwhelming. This is what it boils down to for me. It's just a game. It's really the whole thing is just a game. Like my business success doesn't have anything to do with my personal happiness or joy. And until I could disconnect those two parts of me, there's no way for me to win outside of that. And what I mean by that is that many times I would find myself my happiness and my joy being tied to business performance, and business performance is an ocean. Yeah, the trend line is up for most of us, hopefully, but it's not just a linear path. It's a big old mess most of the time. You have a great stretch and then you lose staff, or the market changes, or something changes. When I could, on a daily basis, decouple my happiness from business performance, that's actually when it all changed. And a lot of that is just simply gamifying it. Jesse Itzler was one of the first people I heard say that. Just a game, just gamify it.
Yep.
It's just not that big of a deal. And a lot of times problems seem really big to us, and just remembering like our place in the world. I mean, certainly like nobody listening to this podcast has probably even heard of our business, but yet it's like the whole world to me, right? And just remembering like, get some perspective. It's going to pass, right? This too shall pass, good, bad, it doesn't matter. But happiness and inner joy is what remains. So, without going way into the philosophy talk or inward development in that regard, that's the practice to me that keeps me motivated. This game is very fun. Entrepreneurship is an incredible gift that we have, an opportunity, but at the beginning and the end of the day, you got to just be able to laugh about it and say,
Yeah.
man, this is awesome. Look what we got to do. Oh, that didn't work. Or, hey, that worked great.
Yeah, amen, brother. I mean, the seed of entrepreneurship is always going to be choppy and the winds are going to shift. So like you said, if you're caught up in going one direction and you're going to let the shifting tides or whatever you want to call it really bring you down, you're going to be in for a rough road. And I think that's a good segue to my next question, because one of the biggest hurdles I think most of us as entrepreneurs face at one time or another or all the time is living a well-rounded life and really doing the things that bring us joy and surrounding ourselves with the people that we care about most without being totally caught up in work and what's going on with the business. And I'd be curious to hear, like, what does living that well-rounded life look like for you?
For sure. It's a valuable lesson. And many people will present the idea that it's a work life balance. And I would push back a little bit on that idea, because most of us, if we visualize a balance, you have like two separate things and they're on this balance beam and this tiny little point, like this tiny point where everything is in balance. It's a very narrow margin, right? And after being in business, I don't like narrow margins. I like wider margins of safety. And
For sure.
a mentor of mine presented the idea that it's a work life blend. And through the years, this is really relevant to whatever your priority is. That's what you're going to get. For me, like pure joy and happiness is my priority. It, if something gets in the way of that, I will challenge that, but I won't challenge whatever makes me happy. And there's very simple things that make me happy. But to to balance it out, I have just determined it's going to be a blend. If I'm spending too much time at work and it's not working, it's not the business's fault. It's my fault. The business is doing exactly what I designed it to do. If I designed it that it's going to take 65 hours a week, or I remember like during the pandemic working like 27 days in a row, and I thought, it's just like legitimately 27 days in a row is getting to be like fairly all inclusive. Like we weren't taking a break. We were hustling. We were doing everything it took to take care of our customers. And it was doing what it was designed to do, even during that time. If it would have had more staff, it would have made it a lot easier. But I had not established that blend previously. So when it comes to work life blend or balance, whatever we would like to call it, the easiest thing that has kept me centered in it is that the business is doing exactly what I designed it to do. So if it's requiring all of my time, I designed it to do that. And there may be a temporary push where you've got to put in some effort, or maybe you're filling two roles for a minute, but a bit of simple planning will redesign the business to get you out of that. Um, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
I don't really have off days as far as, like, oh, don't contact me. I'm in my separate life.
Yeah. Going
My
off
goal is
grid.
to, yeah, my goal is to have one life, and that doesn't mean that I'll necessarily answer a work email, at 11 o'clock at night, or be working on some deal. But I've just found it so much more pleasurable. Yeah, if you're on vacation, sure, you have things set up, and you're not. I don't need to be checking in, but I've just decided to blend it. Since I kind of gave up on having it be a balance, like on off switch, it's
Yeah.
become so much more enjoyable, because I think for many of us too, like we feel guilty about taking any time away from the business, like during working hours. It's Tuesday. I can't, go meet my wife for coffee or whatnot, even though that was a part of the dream when we started.
Exactly. Why
But if you
not?
do it more as a blend, why not? Right? Like, yeah, I'll be back, and we'll dive into that other meeting or whatever we're working on, some project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, 100%. That's really insightful for me. I've never heard it put quite that way because yeah, when you think about something in balance, it's very easy. One little pebble can shift the scale, right? And
Yeah.
having a blend makes a whole lot more sense because no matter what, the two are always going to be blended together. Things will happen in business that will affect your life outside of work and
Yeah.
vice versa. And you've got to be able to, as you said, design it in a way that allows you to maximize your joy and happiness no matter what's happening. Because you can
Yeah.
always fill the time you give yourself. If you say, okay, a 60-hour work week is it, you'll always find things to do to fill that 60 hours. But if you can crunch that down and that's your priority, you can often get the same amount of work done in a lot less time and have more time
Certainly.
left.
Yeah, certainly the leaders of the biggest companies in the world have the same amount of hours as we do. So
Yeah, that's
there must be some secret to
absolutely.
it.
And knowing everything that you've learned throughout this journey, what advice would you give yourself back when you were just about to embark on your first business venture? And what advice would you tell yourself to ignore potentially?
Yeah. Well, I would start with ignore. The advice that I would give myself is to ignore the advice that staying small is safe.
Mm,
I learned that lesson the hard way, and we were talking about that. Um, the advice that I would give myself, which I think is so valuable to so many of us, is to believe in people. For myself, that journey was predicated on learning to believe in myself, having self compassion, and then spilling that out to others, which really are no longer others, just the rest of humanity, other people having a human experience just like myself, and truly believing in those folks, like we said, done is better than perfect. It just beats it all day long.
every day.
And that would have saved me so much pain and so much suffering and so many hours. And even more so than that, it would have served our community better, and it would have given more opportunity to more people. And I don't want to live a life of should haves. I don't want to should all over myself here by saying that. There's no point in doing that. But I say it to remind myself whenever I think, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we don't have room for another teammate, or maybe I should just stay this size. And I think, yeah, well, it's grow or die, and I don't think we're done yet. So it's kind of the one and the same. I would Many of us get advice, just stay small. You've got control. You know, nobody does it better than you. And man, it's just so false. There's so many wonderful people out there that are
Yeah.
willing to help and throw in and share their vision with us on our journey.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a trap. There's so many people out there, in your case and in mine and in every entrepreneur's journey to be able to serve. And it's a disservice to stay small. Unless, there are situations where that's potentially okay. And if you're happy with what you've built and it's sustainable, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're in
Yeah,
business to help people at the end of the day. And it sounds like you're doing it right, man.
yeah, 100%. There's so many industry. Every industry is different. I'm speaking, of course, of my experience in my industry, which is like serving the greater public in this one. We're basically appliance repairmen. If you think about it, it's just
Expensive
people have it.
appliances. Yep.
People have a need, and we have an answer. So
Yep.
yeah.
Awesome, Ryan. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience, or anything you'd think listeners should know or check out before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I mean, kind of revisiting this whole journey and this conversation has just reinforced to me how important it is to do work on yourself, do personal development work, and that can come in many forms. And uh, I think that everybody knows what that path looks like for them. But in our one of the groups I'm a part of, business coaching group, the saying of the group is "fix the owner, fix the shop." Right? It's the mantra of the whole organization, and I really found that to be true. That good news, the problem was me, and I can actually do something about that. So that would be my advice to anybody, is that you are the most important asset in your business, 100%. Never view it any other way. You're the most important asset and are deserving of growing and pushing and learning and developing that asset. Through that, then other people will get opportunity to do the same. So if there was, one message that I could reinforce, that we could hopefully get out to young or seasoned entrepreneurs in this adventure of entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
is really double down on believing in yourself, that there's a reason that you're doing it, and allowing people to pour into your personal development and get that straightened out. Be happy. Happy is not a someday doctrine. It will only happen right now in the present moment. And once that's squared away, you really, like, I was able to just really start to see the limitlessness of entrepreneurship and encouraging others, and yeah, making money along the way. Of course, we all have to eat, but um man, it sounds cliche to say it's just not all about the money, but it's just not. There's so much more to it. So double down on yourself. You're the most important asset your business has, and then pour into others.
Sound advice, brother. I think
Yeah.
that's very good place for us to wrap things up. Is there, or where can people find you online? I'm sure there's going to be people that are be interested to learn more about you. Websites,
Yeah.
socials, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in our area, we're somewhat known, but our business is Peak Euro, and it's simply peakeuro.com, or find me on social media, Ryan Miles.
All right, man. Well, we will put that in the show notes for the audience. And I really appreciate your time as always. And I look forward personally to following your journey, man.
Hey, thanks for being a part of it and inviting me along to share. It's really fun to get to the point where you can help out. Yeah,
100%. That's what it's all about.
yeah, for sure.
To all of our Adventurous listeners, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share this on social media or with someone you know will get some value from it. Leaving a review goes a long way in helping people find the show, and I personally appreciate reading them when they come in. So please go drop one if you have the time. We'll see you all next week, and remember, whether we're talking about business or the things that bring us joy outside of work, life is meant for exploring. So go out there and live it one adventure at a time.